Welcome. I call to order the special meeting of the Saline County Board of Commissioners for July the 8th, 2020. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Shadwick?
Here.
Commissioner Sparks?
Here.
Commissioner Vidrickson?
Here.
Commissioner Weiss?
Here.
Commissioner White?
Here.
I ask you please stand and join me in a flag salute followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thanks. Guilty as charged. As everyone knows, the purpose of the meeting today is to revisit the COVID, mask wearing, and so forth. It's been a tough few days, been a tough few months for everybody. I know that. So, to start off today, we're going to get a PowerPoint presentation with Philip Smith-Haynes, our county administrator, and it's got some details regarding the COVID and the resolution itself that may or may not be coming into effect. So the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. So I thought I would just go through the provisions of the proposed resolution and just a little bit about how we got here. This is similar to what I did on Thursday night. To start with, just a little bit of the history. We have been at this since March. Saline County has been in a declared disaster since March 27th. Our health officer attempted to do a stay-at-home order, but got preempted by a statewide order. Then on the day after Memorial Day, the governor vetoed a act of the legislature that had the effect of returning decision-making to the local counties, and on June the 8th, she signed into law House Bill 2016 from the legislative special session, which gives the boards of county commissioners authority to impose local health orders that are either more or less restrictive than executive orders. That same legislation also stripped the criminal penalties out of the governor's executive orders. On June 30th, the governor indicated that she would be instituting a statewide mask ban, but she would not release any language until Thursday, July 2nd. On last Thursday, of course, your commission met in special session to review the governor's order once we had finally seen it. And you decided to issue a less restrictive local order under House Bill 2016 powers, but you expressed your willingness to revisit the issue, especially in light of the lack of enforcement provisions in the governor's executive order. On Monday of this week, the Salina City Commission passed Ordinance 20-11034, which largely parallels the governor's order. And yesterday, you expressed the desire for uniformity between the city and the county and willingness to meet in a special meeting once a copy of the city's ordinance was received. We did receive the city's ordinance yesterday after your regular commission meeting, and county councilor spent his evening drafting a resolution that would parallel the city's ordinance. So the requirements within the proposed resolution, these parallel the requirements within the city's ordinance, require that folks cover their mouth and nose with a mask or other face covering when inside any indoor public space, The city inserted language where distancing of 6 feet at all times is not possible. So that's a slight difference from the governor's order, which just said inside any indoor public space or in line. So the city separated those two and inserted the language about 6 feet. The other provisions parallel the governor's order, so obtaining services from a healthcare sector, et cetera, waiting for or riding public transportation, taxi, ride share, et cetera, and while outdoors in public spaces and unable to maintain a 6-foot distance between individuals, not including individuals who reside together, with only infrequent or incidental moments of closer proximity. Then the governor's order had requirements for businesses and organizations. The city of Salina specifically added and nonprofit associations to that language that the governor had. And so businesses or nonprofits are required to make all employees, customers, visitors, members, or members of the public wear a mask or other face covering when employees are working in any space visited by customers, members of the public, and then the city of Salina inserted or co-workers. And the governor's order said whether or not members of the public were present at the time. The city's ordinance changed that to who are present at the time. So one of the key distinctions between what the governor's order provided and what the city ordinance and the parallel county resolution would call for is that employees would only have to mask up when other people were present. When employees are working in any space where food is prepared or packaged for sale or distribution for others, then the city ordinance struck out language that was in the governor's executive order regarding when employees are working in or walking through common areas such as hallways, stairways, elevators, and parking facilities. So that is not included in the city ordinance or the parallel county resolution. And then when customers, members, visitors, members of the public are in a facility managed by the business or organization, or when employees are in any room or enclosed area where other people, except for individuals who reside together, are present and unable to maintain a 6-foot distance, except for those infrequent or incidental moments of closer proximity. The exceptions to the requirements, the city's exceptions largely parallel the governor's order. They did change hearing impaired to deaf or hard of hearing, but in all other respects, it's the folks 5 years or under, folks with a medical condition, mental health condition, or disability that prevents wearing a covering, persons who are hard of hearing or communicating with a person who's hard of hearing, where the ability to see the mouth is essential, persons for whom wearing a face covering would create a risk as determined by regulators or workplace safety guidelines, persons who are obtaining a service involving the nose or face for which temporary removal of the face covering is necessary to perform the service, folks seated at a restaurant or other establishment offering food or beverage service while they are eating or drinking, provided they maintain a 6-foot distance between individuals who are not residing together or seated together. Athletes who are engaged in organized sports activities that allow for maintenance of a 6-foot distance, persons who are engaged in an activity that a professional or recreational association, regulatory entity, medical association, or other public health-oriented entity is determined cannot be safely conducted while wearing a mask. Persons engaged in legislative activities, I'm not sure that actually applies, but that was language from the governor's order that got carried over. Persons engaged in a court-related proceeding, that would apply here locally. And then persons engaged in any lawful activity during which wearing a mask is prohibited by law. The definitions of mask or face covering and public space are the same as those definitions were found in the governor's executive order, so I won't go through all those. The big difference is the enforcement provisions. So you may recall that the governor's executive order, as I mentioned, the legislature stripped out the ability for that to be a criminal penalty. So that was a civil action initiated by the county or district attorney. The city's ordinance and the resolution that's under consideration for your commission today provide instead fines of up to $25 for the first violation, up to $50 for the second violation, and up to $100 for any third or subsequent violation. And then a couple of provisions that are unique to the county resolution that's before you for consideration today that would not have applied to the city ordinance. Those are the effective date. The city's was effective upon publication, which we understand will be tomorrow. This resolution as drafted would be effective at essentially midnight tonight if it's passed. And this resolution would also repeal the public health order issued by your commission last Thursday so that those are not in conflict. That is the overview of where we are this afternoon and what's before you for consideration. And staff would be happy to answer any questions. The public health officer and county counselor are in attendance as well.
My question would be for County Councilor Mr. Montoya. And to clarify for the public, the city operates with an ordinance, and that has to be published in the paper and so on and so forth, and has a time attached to it, you know, as far as when it can go into effect. The county, through state statute, operates with resolutions, and they do not have to be published. And I would ask Mike Montoya, do we need to read this resolution today? I mean, he's pretty well given it an overview right there. It is a 3-page document that would be available, I would presume, on our website and so forth. Well,
No, I think you're fine. He's already provided all of the information that's in the resolution. In addition to that, you're acting as the Board of Health. As part of this resolution, it's reflected that you're not only acting as the County Commission, but also as the Board of Health. And under your authority pursuant to the Board of Health, you're able to issue orders such as this, which is what you're doing, if you approve this.
okay, I think we will dispense with the reading of that. I think you get bogged down in the whereases and what fors and therefores and what have you. So he's given you an overview there. I think at this time we will open it up for public comment, and as our first point of emphasis, you will need to state your name. You will also need to be advised that you will be limited to 3 minutes. So if there's anyone who wishes to speak to the Board of Commissioners, please step forward.
I'm Dr. Patrick McDonald. My concern is what kind of common sense training of officers would it take to mandate such a law? As you know, I spoke to you at your 6/30/2020 meeting. I didn't quite catch all the judicial parts in the administrator's deal, but when I was arrested for my false DUI, much of my concern was about the lack of masks in the field and at the jail. And as a veterinarian, I understand the effectiveness of a mask. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm also Dr. McDonald, live at the same address. How many of you have had to tell your children that they can't do something? Given them a curfew. As a veterinarian, I'm quite aware of contagious infectious diseases and zoonotic ones, meaning that they transfer to humans or from humans to animals. Right now, Butler County is working very hard at containing a vesicular stomatitis in horses. The vector there is flies. Very hard time trying to control those. However, very important to limit their movement. This disease isn't airborne. Now, you have droplets, which are larger than aerosols, and it's been proven that this is an aerosol. Do you have air conditioning in this building? Are you aware of the currents of air that are passing? 6 feet is not necessarily going to protect you. 6 feet may be 8, 9, 10 feet. So a mask in an enclosed area, whether you feel that you're safe, whether you feel that you don't have the disease, is extremely important. And if we want to get back to an even keel and have our economy open up, we need to start doing things we don't want to do. You guys are in control of a lot of children that don't want to be told you can't go to that party. This is a big responsibility that you have to not negate what is being trying to do to protect those people who are in the state of Kansas in Saline County.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak?
Ben Pruitt, 2774 Burchell, Apartment 201. I'm not a child, I'm an adult. We elected all of you to do us a job and not dictate what we need to do. You look around, you watch the media, they say this, they say that. Make your decision. The facts are there, do the research. But don't forget who put you all in office. And if you seek to get re-election, you're probably not going to be very good if you vote to pass this. We're not children, we're adults. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lene Meyer, Salina. I want to emphasize this is not a political matter, in my opinion. I just want to say I'm so grateful that you're here reconsidering this. And of course, obviously, I hope that you will pass this ordinance. I think it takes, I want to say thank you for reconsidering. It takes a lot of wisdom and compassion and caring for our citizens. And working with the city is just a no-brainer. That was an excellent thought, and it's just a perfect idea. And so I want to say I do hope you'll pass it, of course. It's the best thing we can do for our county, city, because in the big picture, we're all in this together, and we need to care about one another and keep politics out of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Melissa Hendricks. I live here in Salina. I was extremely disappointed by the city's decision to mandate masks under the guise of the Clean Air Act. I have issues with how it will be enforced, the exemptions, and the guidelines that the order entails. Don't our police officers have more pressing matters to deal with instead of forcing people to wear a mask? Who determines compliance versus non-compliance? What stops a healthy person from saying they have a medical condition to get out of wearing one? Why are the Kansas legislature and Kansas judiciary offices exempt from the requirement? From the beginning of the COVID season in March, the governor and you guys told us that the goal was to flatten the curve, and we did that. To my knowledge, our hospital was not overrun by COVID cases, and neither were many hospitals throughout the state of Kansas. We began lifting restrictions over 2 months ago in May, and at that time, neither our governor, our city, nor our county thought it was necessary to mandate masks. From the beginning, we knew that we would see an increase in cases as restrictions were lifted. Our city allowed various sporting events to take place, which brought people here from all over the state. Do you not see the hypocrisy in that? Why is anyone in this room surprised or shocked by the fact that the number of cases have gone up? Now let's talk facts. Okay, I can give you all the data, but I'm not going to go into complete detail here because I only have 3 minutes. As Mr. Pruitt said, go do your research. No matter what level you look at, if you go to the CDC's website and look up the definition on how to calculate a cause-specific mortality rate, county, state, and national COVID mortality rates are significantly less than 1%. I may not be an epidemiologist, but I do know how to research, I do know how to read, and I do know how to do math. Anyone can look at one figure, such as 29 new cases in 3 days, and freak out. But we must not forget that the deaths in our county flatlined at 2 and have stayed that way for months. We must not forget that our hospitals have not been inundated by COVID cases. And most of all, we must not forget the fact that the CDC has posted its 10th consecutive week of decline for deaths contributed to pneumonia, influenza, and COVID. I have been told over and over again that if we all just wear a mask, the virus will go away. Kids can go back to school. When did eradication become the goal? To sit here and mandate masks 2 months after the onset of lifting restrictions is like deciding to put a condom on after your wife is already pregnant. It's a naive way of thinking. The fact is that more and more people are recovering from this virus. My family and I do not have underlying health conditions or elderly at-risk people to worry about. My husband has worked on the front lines for a critical infrastructure business this whole time. He has been in and out of hotspot cities, countless homes and businesses, and all without a mask. He has not gotten sick, and if he has, his immune system has fought it off, and that's what it's supposed to do. I recognize and sympathize with those families that have underlying health issues or elderly at-risk individuals. Those people should be taking precautions to keep themselves safe from this virus, just like they would with influenza or any other illness. Individuals should be given the right to choose what is right for themselves and their families when it comes to wearing masks. Whether they are low risk or high risk, they should have the choice. It's called personal responsibility. Everyone's physiology is different. And by mandating masks, you are effectively taking away the right to choose for the remaining 95.8% of the population. It is not right.
Okay,
I strongly urge the Commission to uphold its decision not to mandate masks.
Thank you.
Hi there. My name's Darren Henderson. I live here in Salina. I come from a kind of a unique perspective. I had COVID-19, and so did the rest of my family. And I want to say that my wife wore a mask the entire time from the moment that I would say early March. And we actually feel at this point now that the mask actually helped her get COVID because of the mask that she was wearing. I think, I'm not going to sit up here and quote statistics. I think we can all do that. I want to thank you guys for being well articulated and saying what you had to say, because I agree with what the lady was just sitting up here saying. All I want to say is we live in a great country that we can sit up here and we can share our thoughts. As a veteran of this country, I want to be able to say this. The fact that you're taking our rights away and telling us what we must do with everything that's being said from OSHA, the CDC, the World Health Organization about what these masks will and will not do. We need to understand what wearing a mask, and I got to tell you, going into a Walmart or going into a Dillon's and seeing somebody wear a mask with their nose sticking out of it like this, or how they're wearing it, or understanding what an N95 mask even does, okay? I mean, masks are not for healthy people. Masks are for people that are sick and for those that are working, like these people here, with patients that are sick to help prevent them from getting sick. Everything that I've read about masks, it's all about the type of mask and how you wear it and how prolonged you wear it and how you reuse it, and all of that has to be considered. But to force somebody to wear a mask, I don't believe is the thing to do. And again, coming from the perspective of being positive with COVID-19 and going through the entire process of being basically incubated, I think that's the thing to do. You take sick people and you take them away from healthy people is the way to do that. Not put a bunch of people around in masks that I don't feel is effective. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Chad Farber, 1311 East Beloit Avenue here in Salina. I have a couple of concerns with the resolution that is brought before us today. First off, the CDC has already said we are no longer in a pandemic. We're hardly at the threshold of an epidemic is what they are saying, which means that we're coming at this way late in the game if you're trying to get a mask to try to protect people around you. Secondly, the enforcement of this is going to put our law enforcement in a difficult position. I think all of us would agree that there's already enough dissent between some of our citizens and our law enforcement right now. When our citizens are approached with a violation of this resolution, they're not going to be upset at the county commissioners or the city commissioners. They're going to take out their frustrations on that officer that is standing right in front of them. And I don't think that's fair to them. I don't think that's fair to put them in that position. The other thing, I guess, is this. None of the statistics, as we've already heard, are proving that masks help curb anything. Our first goal was to flatten the curve, and I believe we have done that. Our hospital systems are not overwhelmed here in Saline County. We, as citizens, have made the decisions amongst ourselves to protect ourselves from the sicknesses that are around us. We deserve that opportunity. Following after Independence Day, we deserve the opportunity to make decisions for ourselves. We do not need to be mandated by any governing body to do something. We need to use our own common sense. I hope that you'll take, these little ideas of us as citizens here of the county into consideration with your decision. Thank you for your service. I appreciate you all as commissioners, but I do hope that you will vote down this resolution and let us make our own decisions.
Thank you, sir.
Jeff Bennett, 1552 East Waterwell Road. Good afternoon. First off, for those of you that are concerned and want to wear a mask and everything, I do highly recommend that you go with the N9 or whatever that one is. It starts with an N. That's the only one that protects the air going out and coming in. Your paper masks right there, really, they protect somebody you're talking to, but they don't protect you.
I'm aware of that.
One other thing that the governor stated that really was concerning when she mandated the mask, she said, these should do until we get the vaccine. So what that tells me, if she's going to mandate a mask and then not, she's going to mandate a vaccine, and that's not going to fly. Anyway, I try to do a lot of research, and like we talked the other night, and I hear doctors here saying this, doctors here saying that. Well, the highest ranking one I could find was Dr. Scott Atlas, and he is a senior fellow at the Stanford University's Hoover Institution, okay? And I know this is a little out of norm, but I would like to play his interview that was just yesterday on the news. Can't do that, okay. Well, I'd hope you'd all, because I love information. So I don't turn it down wherever it comes from if it's legitimate. But these people really did a good job of putting the case together today, much better job than I could do. But that's why I brought him along. He couldn't come in, so but anyway, you guys have a good day, and I hope you make the right decision as I felt like you did the other day.
And can I get
Thank
that
you.
doctor's name again? What was that doctor's name?
Just a second there. Dr. Scott Atlas. He's senior fellow at Stanford University's Hoover Institution and former chief of neurology at Stanford University Medical Center.
Thank you.
He's a big shot. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Anyone else before I bring it back to the commission? Mr. Tiller, do you have anything that you want to add to this today that you didn't speak the other day? Or are there any more new information or different position?
No different position. I mean, I understand and appreciate all of the comments made by both sides today. And as I said on Thursday, coming to my recommendation was a struggle because I have feelings on both sides of the issue. But as a public health professional right now, I still need to recommend that to the board, that we adopt this resolution, given the current situation that we are still facing here in Saline County, although it's not in the resolution, but with the caveat that we review all of the data, the situation, and whether this needs to continue at least every 14.
Well, I think the resolution while it doesn't state that, it's implied that we could undo it in 24 hours, or, if we were all meeting. Am I?
Yes.
So we can, and that's no date in there, because we can do, call a special meeting just like we're doing today and go from there, so.
We can, but although I think the public is looking for a date, because there is a side out there that wants this to go on forever. The flu season will come and the second wave will come. And, I asked for yesterday some language in there to do that. I understand we can, but I think it's important if we do pass this, I'm not saying we will, but if we do pass this, I would like to see to review it July 28th, and put it in there that it's going to be reviewed every other week. I think that businesses out there need some certainty. There will be businesses that decide not to open through this, and I think that they need to make decisions on when possibly it could happen. If it's when a vaccine becomes available, that could be next year, and that open-endedness bothers me.
Yes, I do, and I don't know really where to start, except what bothers me is that when we state that but this is a personal responsibility. I still look at it as important as individuals, we take personal responsibility in our actions to help with the spread of this coronavirus. This may include wearing a mask in public places, stay at home when symptoms are present, contacting your family physician, and practicing social distancing outside of your homes. Other things that really get me is about when it says here that promote, secure the safety and protection of the civilian population. Under the section 4B, under the exemptions, and it says a medical condition, mental health condition, or disability. Do they need a doctor's letter? And what if the business does not like them? What happens? I had a person call me this morning. Back when we was in phase 1, I could go to this establishment, South Salina, Kansas, walk in there any time of the day without a mask on, didn't matter. Now this person walked out there this morning to go into that store, and she was not allowed in that store without a mask on. She has a medical condition. She had cancer. She also has asthma, and she cannot wear a mask. And she called me and wanted to know what should she do about that. And I'm sitting there going, I would assume that you would get a letter from your doctor stating the fact, and she's kind of, and I'm saying, or you can go somewhere else to shop. But that bothers me is that we're the city, and with this ramification that we're putting on people, that I think this is worse than phase 1 was. That's how people are taking it, that we are, with that mask on, you're going to be safe. You're never going to get sick. That's the way people are taking this. And other exemptions, we can walk around all day, and we can walk into a restaurant, and 4 or 5 of us can go sit, and as soon as we get seated, and if we're as far as 6 feet from, we can all take off our masks. We don't have to wear a mask to sit there and eat and drink. And I'm sitting there going, it's where does it start and stop? Athletes who are engaged in an organization sports activity that allows athletes to maintain 6 of others in frequent or incidental moments. So that tells me that, okay, I can go out here and play soccer because you're running around all over the field. You can go play baseball until you go up to bat. Then you got to put your mask on because I'm within 6 feet of the umpire or the deal. What are you going to do? Except that's incidental. I mean, you're not going to be there very long, so it's going to be okay not to wear a mask. Persons engaged in activity or event held or managed by the Kansas legislature. Why are these people so special? And I'm glad you brought that up. And it's like under all these exemptions, I'm going, why are these people so special? And it gets me, it's like, okay, we're talking about a 5-year-old child. Everybody 5 years and under don't have to wear a mask. I'm thinking, okay, if we're worried about people getting sick, I'm thinking that's where I am at. we get back on the definitions of a mask. Household items such as scarves, bandanas, T-shirts, sweatshirts, or towels. Have these products all been verified by medical or science professionals? Have we have face masks being sold out there that say right on them will not stop COVID-19? My whole thing comes to it, is this really a perception of safety, or is this a psychological manipulation? I'm done.
Thank you, Roger. Commissioner White?
Yeah, I have a legal question for council. Could you tell me what KSA 19101D is?
No.
No. I didn't have time to research it, Counselor.
That's just the statute, just a general statute under your statute that allows commission to pass resolutions. It just says basically that any resolution you pass, you can impose penalties and fines. So that's what gives you the ability to have the $25, $50, and $100 fine.
Okay, so rural Saline County, Officer Kokanowski stops somebody and they're not wearing a mask. Who's going to enforce that?
Well, it's a different question than your question. Under 19101D, it doesn't say who's going to enforce it, so it'd be the same as any other county resolution. I think you're going to have to deal with the same enforcement issues, and if we have a county resolution that has fines that are there, if an officer is in a situation where they have to address that, then obviously they can. I don't know that and Phil may want to address this a little bit, but I don't know that the officer is going to go out on a mask call if somebody calls and says that there's a violation. I think there's going to be certain situations where you would have to basically conduct some form of investigation, determine whether or not they in fact violate the resolution, if they do have a medical condition, if there's something there that would prohibit them from having to wear a mask. And so ultimately, it would be the Sheriff's Department that would be the enforcement provision here. It's a civil penalty, it's not a criminal penalty. So this is the mechanism that 19101D allows for the enforcement of county resolutions.
Thank you, Counselor. We have one thing we're missing in our thought process here in regards to this countywide mandate from Topeka that was bestowed upon us with a short fuse, and we acted accordingly. It's kind of a moot point now. The city leaders adopted their ordinance number, whatever, but we still have 5 incorporated cities within Saline County. They have their own governing boards, and they make decisions on their local level, no different than the city of Salina did yesterday. And I would hate to adopt a countywide resolution mandating this, and that'd be no different than what the governor tried to do to us a few days ago. So we've got a handful of businesses within the county, grain elevators, feed stores, and a few restaurants, and I honestly can't see the benefit of enforcing a county-wide resolution.
Very well put. Okay, Mr. Weiss.
I again have some questions, council. If this resolution would pass, does it impact the city's ordinance at all?
No.
If this resolution would pass, would it negate the ability of the city of Assyria to pass an ordinance of lesser degree?
No.
So
if they're incorporated, if they're an incorporated city, then as Commissioner White indicated, they would be able to pass their own ordinance and do the procedure that they
draw
want.
out their own guidelines and rules and regulations. So all we would be doing is putting in place a resolution that they would fall under, until which time they decided they might want to go a different direction.
Correct, and there may be some enforcement issues even with that.
Okay.
If I may interrupt just for a second, I won't ask you to come back up. If we fail to pass this resolution, the city's ordinance still goes into effect, and the face mask is still in effect in the city of Salina, correct?
Right.
Thank you. And Mr. Weiss, go ahead.
Okay. Couple questions for Jason's comments that the public had. Is our curve flattened in Salina?
It has been. We are starting to see an increase in the hospitalizations at Salina Regional, but it is still, it's not spiking, no, but we are starting to see an increase in hospitalizations.
Okay. And there's been a lot of confusion. People lean on the CDC, and one use it as for one side of the argument, and another one use it for the other side of the argument. Can you tell me what the CDC says about the wearing of masks?
CDC still recommends the wearing of masks. In fact, their last document, this one here, considerations of wearing cloth face coverings, updated June 28th, goes into a lot of the information about wearing those face coverings. Several other articles, research still advocates for the scientific fact that masks do provide or are effective at trying to reduce the spread of COVID.
Now, you probably do this with a yes or no. How about the World Health Organization?
As far as I know, they are still advocating for masks.
National Institute of Health?
The NIH, I'm not sure. I haven't seen much from them lately, but I can definitely look. Excuse me?
Surgeon General?
Last I knew, he was still advocating for masks.
The White House COVID Task Force?
I believe Dr. Fauci is. Of course, the president is not, I don't believe.
Vice President? Yes. Here and there. Okay, Kansas Department of Health.
Kansas Department of Health is.
And the Saline County Health Department Director.
I am.
As far as comments, the gentleman was right. Every year, either a city or a county commissioner is up for re-election. And it is the ability then to change your board if a decision comes down that you don't like. And I am good with that. But I look at this as, if this resolution passed, the worst would be an inconvenience to the public if it doesn't pass. If it's accepted, the best would be lives might be saved, and we might be able to keep our community open and not have to go back to a shutdown and such. So.
Thank you. That brings us to the final one here. First, let me say thank you to all of you for taking the time to come here, be interested in this, no matter which way you're headed. I agree with whoever said if everybody would just do their part and would social distance or whatever it takes to keep themselves and anyone else safe, if we would all do that. But it appears to me that we're not doing that, and that's why we're in the situation that we're in. I also want to thank my fellow commissioners for agreeing to come here and revisit this. You know, we had 45 cases since Friday, or that were identified, I should say. They probably had it before that, but they were identified like 19 and then 26 or something to that effect. 26. So it was a prudent thing to do, I think, to come in and revisit this and to give us time. The governor gave us no time whatsoever for us to come up with a resolution on last Thursday or to be able to react. I understand why my fellow commissioners voted the way they did with the enforcement thing. I understand their comments today. I agree with almost everything that's been said in here today. Other than, do we wear them or don't we wear them? Because, you know, there has to be a line in the sand there for me. The difference between the city, the city does not have a health officer. The county does have a health officer. And I'm going to take some direction from a health officer. I've had, probably 25 physicians call me or email me and suggest that I do one thing or another, and I can tell you the vote was 24-1. to wear the mask. My vote will go in favor of the health department and their suggestion, and that's how it will happen. So, are there any further comments from commissioners?
Well, I would just like to say, as somebody that voted against it on Thursday, the fact is 85% of the county is going to be under this tomorrow, whether we accept this or not. My concerns yesterday were, I think that there needs to be a level playing field between people within the city and in the rural areas, and I think that there needed to be some consistency. I still don't like the governor's one that she mandated to us the other day. I think the city's is a little bit more thoughtful. So I'm going to be somebody that's in the unique position that my business is now going to be boycotted by both groups. But I'll put it on the table that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that we pass Resolution 20-2297, consideration of the county resolution in parallel to the city of Salina, but I would like to add on Section 6 that this board will review this July 28th, which is 2 sessions from now, and we review it every other Tuesday.
Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second that motion.
It has been moved and seconded that we pass Resolution 20-2297 with the amendment that we revisit this issue on July the 28th of 2020.
And every other Tuesday.
And every other Tuesday thereafter?
Yes.
Okay. At this time, all of those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is there and those opposed?
Nay.
There are 2 nays and 3 yays. So the resolution does pass. I would venture to say, well, there's no need to make any further comments. It's passed, and it'll be parallel with what the city has. I would take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Is there a second for adjournment?
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn today's meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We're adjourned. Thank you for coming.